Today, we're going to tell you about the 5 most important people at the Nintendo headquarters in Japan. And you're going to be really surprised because they are not developers and they may be people you've never heard of before.
Dun, dun, dun.
Drama. Who are these
The
mysterious
intrigue
figures?
is growing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we did this about a year ago, the 5 most important people at Nintendo of America. This is the counterpoint to that. But guess what? Japan's headquarters. So these are more important people.
Very important.
And I think it's interesting to peel back the curtain and let people know of who is making important decisions, who is responsible for things that are directly impacting all of us.
Yeah.
So this would be a fun one. And we worked with all these people.
We did.
We know these people really well.
The puppet masters of Nintendo will finally be revealed.
Deep breath. Oh my gosh, wow. Speaking of drama, we left off our last podcast with a bit of drama ourselves.
We did.
About the spoiler cast game for the month of August because we frankly did not know.
We didn't know.
We finished Mario and Luigi and we said, what's next? And the answer was, I don't know.
It was a big giant question mark.
So we did a bit of brainstorming, spoke to our community. We came up with 3 finalist games.
Yes.
Those games were the original Metroid Prime, Shadow of the Colossus, and
Awesome
Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Yes.
And there was a brief moment of time where I had convinced myself that it had to be Shadow of the Colossus.
That's such a good game.
The perfect game. We'll probably do that down the line.
We will. I love that game. Want to play it again.
But that is not the selection.
No.
I'm sorry, Metroid Prime, but it is not you either. We'll do that one later too.
Yeah.
Which means
It is.
the August spoiler cast game is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Yay!
Excellent stuff.
Yeah. Excited about this one.
Yes, our superstars in our Patreon convinced us to really go with this game, saying, it's going to be a great lead-in for Echoes of Wisdom. And guess what? They're absolutely right.
They were like looking into a crystal ball or something.
This morning, this new trailer released, which we just put out a video on. You should watch that.
Yeah.
Analyzing that. And yes, there's all sorts of connections. We started replaying A Link to the Past over the weekend, so it's very fresh in our minds.
Yeah, it's so cool to look at that map. And then look at the map that they showed in Echoes of Wisdom.
I'm really glad we're going to have a reason to go back because I feel like it's going to pay off big time when we play this new game, in addition to just being like an absolute all-time classic. There is also this interesting, new perspective on this game from younger players who did not grow up with this game.
Right.
Who maybe are not, seeing...
The magic?
So why is this game so great? Why is this considered an all-timer? So it's actually been a little while since I've played this game. So I do want to go back and see, does it still hold up? I think it does.
I think so.
I think it definitely does, but maybe look into, why might people be feeling that way?
It's going to be some interesting discussion points for us.
As a Y2K baby yourself, maybe you feel that way.
I don't. Pink-haired Link? I'm here for that. Hot pink-haired Link.
We're going to talk a little bit about that in the games we're playing, actually. And you can look forward to that spoiler cast around the end of the month, and hopefully not another all-nighter binging this game.
Hey.
Maybe you should start playing sooner.
I started.
And?
I'm in the 2nd dungeon.
Okay.
I'm doing good.
All right, taking your time. Fine.
Then we'll see what happens.
We have one other thing up on our YouTube. We've been posting so much stuff on our YouTube channel.
It's been great.
You should check it out and catch up if you haven't. We got a video on why they're not making Mario and Sonic Olympic games, analyzing Nintendo's financial results, talking about Game Informer. We got more on all those things in our news section.
Yeah,
we did full videos on that as it was happening. But we have another video that's up talking about 5 recent releases, indie games that we really love for Switch.
Yeah, these are so fun. We haven't done a little roundup like this in a while, and we have been just in our indie game dabble phase.
This is what I'm playing.
Exactly.
In addition to Zelda, this is what I'm playing. Yeah.
And so it's been really nice to just kind of spotlight a few of those. As usual, indie games just propping up the games industry with the most creative, just awesome stuff, and all of these games are super cool, really different from each other. I think the big theme that we came away with as we were making this video and playing these games is it's really hard to describe what kind of game this is, but it's awesome and you want to play it. It's very sort of genre mashing kind of
Right.
just unexpected type of gameplay, which I love.
Well, that is kind of one of the big advantages that they have over like big studio games is, you know, if you're going to be pitching in some game to get $200 million of budget, like the people signing the checks do need to have a very clear understanding. It's like, okay, what exactly is this? What exactly am I getting for this huge investment?
Right.
Whereas like, it's, you know, us, you know, making a game, it's like, yeah, we can do it our way.
Right.
People will eventually see when they play it or when they see it, they'll understand. And a lot of those really unique concepts, like this is now the only way for them to come out because the stakes are just so high.
Too high.
In AAA.
Yeah.
So forget all that.
Forget it and be creative and do your thing because these games are so great and we need to have them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, let's get into our list of the 5 most important people at Nintendo headquarters. But first, we have a great sponsor to shout out. This episode is sponsored by Factor.
Thank you, Factor.
Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes, so no matter how busy you are, you will always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for?
Wow.
What are you waiting for?
Nothing, because I use Factor.
Good.
It's awesome. We were just talking about how busy we've been putting all the videos up on our channel. And catching up after summer vacations. I'm sure there's so many people in the same boat as us. Yeah. And the people that are probably getting ready to go back to school soon as well. So it's just getting busier and busier as summer starts to wrap up. And you might not have time to like cook a big long dinner or go to the grocery store for hours on end. Guess what? Factor's a great option because you can get this delicious chef-crafted meal and you can put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and then you can eat it.
Yeah.
And it's great.
You know what else I was realizing is like there's really a big gap between like food you would get at a restaurant versus like something you would get in the grocery store that's frozen.
Right.
It's like there's really like no in between, but this is kind of that.
Right.
Where it's like it comes, it's ready to go, 2 minutes, and then you're eating, and the quality is so much higher than something that you would get out of like that
the freezer section.
Put something in that freezer section. It's like they can try, but it's not.
It's no good.
It's not that good. There's like a real cap on how good it can be.
Exactly.
Factors though, excellent. They do have 35 different meals with 60 add-ons that change all the time, every week to week. So don't fall into that rut.
You don't have to be in
pick the stuff you like. Pick something new. Pick something great. It's wonderful.
Different menu options too, depending on what you want to do, what you want your diet to be. They have so many options for that, which is great as well.
So head to factormeals.com/KitandKrysta50 and use code KitandKrysta50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code KitandKrysta50 at factormeals.com/KitandKrysta50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Wow, so many discounts. We'll put the code right here and in the description below.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, 5 most important people at Nintendo headquarters in Kyoto, Japan.
Yes.
You know, it is interesting if you go onto the Nintendo, you said you found this on the CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility site.
Kind of dry and boring.
And I think you can probably find this on the Investor Relations site.
Yes,
but like,
also boring.
You know, who is on the board of directors? They're all these different groups and you know, clumpings of people who are the bigwigs and the movers and the shakers there. And you know, there's some names that you recognize. You get to say, we got Mr. Furukawa, there's Mr. Miyamoto. Yeah, we know him. But you go down that list, and there's a lot of other people that you might be wondering, like, well,
who are they?
Who is that?
And what do they actually do?
And what do they do?
Yeah.
And some of those people that we're going to talk about today are on this list. Some of them aren't.
Right.
Some of them are, you know, up-and-comers who I think will, you know, eventually be on there. We also have people who
are down-and-outers,
have been with the company for like decades and decades and are getting close to retirement. We have one person who actually is retired, but is still, again, very much like
active,
pulling strings.
Yeah, from the shadows.
Yeah.
I wasn't kidding when I say people are pulling strings from the shadows because Nintendo, just like broadly, has this very interesting culture of sort of employee, longevity. A lot of people sort of spend their entire career, especially in Japan, at one company.
Right.
And even after they're retired, there is some involvement with the board. There's some sort of, you sit on a meeting every quarter still somehow, even though you're supposed to be retired. Or like randomly you'll come back for a special project. So you can never escape.
In other words, there's no way out.
Iron fist of Nintendo, apparently.
Somehow Palpatine returned. It's very much akin to that. Wait, what? He's back?
He's back?
Don't ask how, don't ask why, but he's back.
Yeah, but he's an ashen corpse of his former self. But he's still there.
Okay. First person on the list is someone by the name of Yusuke Beppu, who, yes, is on the board of directors, noted as a senior executive officer, corporate director, member of the board. This is not a household name, Mr. Beppu. No. But was known very well to us. So he is the head of a team called the Business Development Division, or BDD for short. And this is a very, very big team within Nintendo, and a team where there's a lot of exciting things happening. So this is basically like new business initiatives, basically.
Yeah.
And responsible for the movies, the theme parks, mobile games also went into this. And basically, like, again, any new like non-gaming initiative happens there. Like the really like high scale ones.
Yeah.
Like
high visibility.
Yeah, it's like he's not getting on the phone with Uniqlo and like let's put the new
T-shirt.
Let's put the new Zelda logo on a T-shirt. Like no. High level. Big money making, company changing initiatives.
Right. And this became such an important, like it was always important throughout our time, our 10 plus years at Nintendo, but I would say within like the last 5 years, and you guys, on the outside, like all of us, we see it, play out now with the existence of theme parks and movies and huge partnerships with Lego and things like that. But as it was happening, it was a really interesting sort of time where Nintendo was really shifting into this idea of, we are an entertainment company. We want to do other things that is not just our bread and butter video game stuff to get people into the world of Nintendo. And then this Mr. Beppu's role was just really on a pedestal because he was the one out there, getting all that new business, getting these really prestigious partnerships, and really just, again, like pulling the strings on what this idea of Nintendo as this entertainment powerhouse is going to look like. He's doing a pretty good job because I think they kind of, they're there, so way to go, Mr. Beppu.
Yeah, and it's somebody who's, just influence and role has grown so much. Because I remember when we started doing mobile games, it was like, okay, BDD, that's a new team for us to be working with.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're focused on mobile games. And then you started, the theme park. Oh, BDD's involved in the movie. Okay, wow. And with each of these initiatives, like he had very capable, like individual leads on those. So like Mr. Kono, who's,
Mario Kart,
longtime developer at Nintendo, like he oversees the mobile games. So it's not like, again, it's not like Mr. Beppu himself. Like he is truly, the true executive sense where it's like I'm overseeing from a very high level, but I'm not getting my hands dirty so much on any of these things.
Right.
So, when we would talk to these people, like we would talk to the leads of these projects. I did meet with him a couple times directly though, and he was interested to hear what was going on, but you could just tell like he had a bigger picture for everything in mind.
Right.
He was not,
as he should.
He was not going to get too worked up or excited about like, oh, I loved the article in IGN on the latest Dragalia Lost update. I was doing cartwheels. He's like, he don't care. He's got bigger fish to fry.
He got a lot bigger responsibilities.
Right.
But he understood the value of the work that our old team was working on.
He's a very pleasant person to work with.
You led the mobile stuff for a while, and then I worked on the mobile stuff like right before I
Had
left.
to get out of that.
That was a really tough job.
Had to get off of
Mobile
that.
at Nintendo was like one of the toughest things.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst projects that I ever had to work on. I also worked really closely with the strategic initiatives team, which is sort of the mirror of this BDD department at headquarters.
Yeah.
The SI team was sort of that for NOA.
Right, and we had that person, Wendy Moulet, was on our list when we did the Nintendo of
Wendy's so great. I
America
love
version of this list. Are we ever going to do the Nintendo of Europe version of this list? We certainly could.
Are they on bank holiday? Probably,
When they get back from the bank
when
holiday.
they get back from the bank holiday, maybe we can do the list. But yeah, it's like this partnership, very close partnership between. Really, I wouldn't say, partnership may be the wrong word, is really the BDD team oversees the strategic initiatives team and is really telling them, like, these are the projects that are the priorities, these are the projects that we will be working on, these are the partnerships that we are going to be focusing on.
Yep.
So it's very much a Japan-led
Yeah.
kind of business.
And go through the credits of the Mario movie. You'll see his name pop up pretty early on.
Yeah.
In that. So yes, the influence of Mr. Beppu continues to grow.
Yeah.
Next, I say is probably the one person on this list whose name you might know. It's Satoru Shibata, otherwise known as Tony Shibata.
Yeah.
Who is also on the board of directors at NCL, pretty high up on that list. Also on the board of directors at the Pokemon company.
TPC.
As well. In Japan, he oversees all of the marketing and the licensing work, licensing with games, third-party developers and publishers oversees all of that. So a really important part of what the company is doing. But people might know him as being previously the head of Nintendo of Europe.
Right.
Where he was there from 2000 to 2019 and famously was in those early Nintendo Directs, really matching the energy of Mr. Iwata.
Yeah, and Reggie.
Reggie doing all sorts of little skits. And
he was great.
Remember he had the crazy Ace Attorney hairstyle.
There was a Mr. Shibata fashion show. I remember clearly for Style Savvy.
He did not hold back in any of those Nintendo Directs. And he amassed a lot of fans because of it.
Yeah. He was definitely, in that era, he could stand up to the likes of a Reggie for Europe, which was really cool to see. And this is when we started to see more partnership and just work globally across Nintendo. And I think he was a big part of that because he made it so it was easier for all of us to work with NOE and to do more things with NOE. And that was sort of like the start of that kind of, partnership moving forward where everything became global after that,
I know him as just one of the nicest guys you could ever imagine. He would come and visit us or we would see him at E3.
He's always happy.
Or other events. Always had a big smile on his face.
Exactly.
Always wanted to chit chat with people. How are things going? What's going on with you?
Yeah, he genuinely seemed like he really cared about how you were doing too. He wasn't just asking to ask you. He was always asking because he actually cared.
He's just a genuinely friendly person.
Right.
And he was also a very close personal friend of Mr. Iwata.
Right.
The two Satorus.
Yeah, we used to joke about that.
Yeah.
A little twinsy, a little twin action.
And when we would have those big end of E3 meetings, late into the night, he loved to ask him the hard questions.
I know.
And sometimes he would get stumped. And you could tell, it's just the week had just
drained
worn him down.
Yeah, all of us.
And he's Shibata-san, please tell me about whatever.
Blah, blah in Europe. It's
and it would just be a 3 Mississippi where he's I got nothing.
But I think he's doing it because it was
I think it's on one hand, it's you're the head of NOE, I need to know. On the other hand, I think it was some good-natured
I was
ribbing.
just going to say, it's a little bit a hazing.
Hey, buddy. It's what I might do to you.
Exactly.
I'm going to put this guy on the spot.
You would do that to me.
And watch him squirm a little bit.
You would do that to me. Yeah, but they had that relationship where it was yes, we are obviously professionals in the workplace, but they were good friends. And yeah, they had a bit of more, casual kind of relationship that we saw, which was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you can kind of take that the wrong way of he's this easygoing guy, let people do whatever.
No,
it's definitely not the case. I remember early on, once he moved into this role, he did a big world tour of like, I'm going to meet with people. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing at NCL. If there's anybody who doesn't know me yet, we can do it here. And that was around the time that I was getting into my job leading social media. And we had a number of initiatives that we were trying to push through. And I think we had like 4 or 5 different things. And this was like, in the Nintendo way, we'd really like push them up through all the levels of hierarchy and all the different teams. It was like, okay, we're kind of almost there.
Yeah. Get one more buy-in.
If he gives these the thumbs up, like we can definitely get going.
Head of marketing for all of the headquarters,
right?
And at a Nintendo headquarters, if you get the thumbs up from him, you're probably good,
right?
Yeah.
And like he, very much listened closely as we were going through this pitch for these 5 things, and he's like, okay, these, you can do this, fine, that sounds great. This one thing, absolutely cannot do that.
What was it?
It was the 2-way communication.
Oh, that's right.
That was always something that like you never see Nintendo doing that. And like we think we found kind of like a safe, controlled way to do this.
Respond to fans.
That would be, that would have a positive impact. He's like, we absolutely can't do that.
Yeah. And then we never did.
and we never did. And
they still haven't done.
They never have.
Yeah.
So he's definitely, able to pay attention to all the details, able to, represent the larger company values, understand those. So again, like don't be like disarmed by the very like friendly demeanor. It's like no, he like when he needs to get down to business, he absolutely can.
Yeah.
Right. And very capable people working under him, or we're going to get to one of those people next.
Yeah.
In the marketing sense.
Right.
But again, he's able to really take a high-level view, have this very important role on the Pokemon company. Again, noting that we got to know him on kind of a personal level. We know him as a great tennis player.
Yeah.
There are some people, I think there's a tennis court outside one of the NCL offices.
Yeah,
and
we've seen it before.
There was kind of a group of people who would like play at at lunchtime, and they would say he's actually
actually good.
Like in his younger days, he was like semi-pro level
right
tennis player.
Like not just like hobby tennis.
Like don't try and hustle him because he'll kick your butt.
He'll kick your butt. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it was fun to talk to him whenever there was like a fun tennis thing. We did like the Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, he was super hyped about all of that.
We were like, we gotta get Mr. Shibata over to meet Rafa because he's gonna be so excited about it. I think he was able to do it, but. Like it was always fun when we had like a Mario tennis game because we knew that he would be excited about all the cool things we get to do.
And then finally,
very important
maybe most importantly of all, has an adorable big floofy dog.
Yeah, it's like a husky or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember when he was making the move from Europe back to Japan, like that was like something he was very concerned about. He's like, is this dog going to be okay?
Because he was telling us like, oh my gosh, this dog is huge.
He was like, I live in the suburbs in Germany. Like this dog has plenty of space. Obviously in Japan, it's a different living situation. It's like, oh my gosh, this dog has so much hair and it's going to be so hot in Japan.
I know.
Like, he just had so much genuine concern for this dog.
I hope the dog is okay. I think it is. Air conditioning?
Yeah.
Let it run around the grounds of Nintendo freely.
Right. But again, like when you think of like Nintendo, like, again, all businesses like, they want to make money, but Nintendo is a more pure-hearted company in a lot of ways. Like he definitely embodies this.
He really does.
Right.
And he definitely has like this great personality that we always just be excited to see him and spend time with him.
So he definitely gets the Kit and Krysta big thumbs up.
Yes.
So next up, we mentioned other people working in marketing. This is not a name that we had talked about before, but had a massive impact on the work that we were doing.
Yeah.
And everybody working in marketing at Nintendo of America. The name's Yoshiaki Karatsune.
Right.
Who is now noted not on the board of directors, but as an executive officer.
Right.
And that's a really interesting name to look at too, because we got Doug Bowser on here. We got Takashi Tezuka.
Yep.
Stefan Bull, who is the head of NOE
now
these days.
Shibata-san moved back to Japan.
Right. And so he's the bottom of the list, Yoshiaki Karatsune, but he is basically, he is the head of marketing, and I would say the head of global marketing as well.
He is the head of global marketing for sure. And you know what? I would say that towards when he sort of stepped into that role, and we kind of changed, again, it was like sort of in that last like 5-6 years or so where things just got real global and we sort of changed at Nintendo overall the way we were working, where it was like it needs to be globally coordinated. Like he became like that person that was doing that job.
And he's one of the people in the post Mr. Iwata era who got like one of the biggest bumps in terms of like their influence, their power in the company.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because Reggie was very active in like advocating for NOA to be able to do its own thing, and explaining like reasons why NOA might be doing something that NCL didn't understand, or maybe was not fully on board with. He'd be like, no, back off. Here's the reasons why we're going to do this, and we will.
Yeah.
And when he left, like, and also with Mr. Iwata, like, there was not really that level of advocacy.
Right.
So he could step in and be like, hey, here's the way we're doing things. We're going to do it one way. It's going to have a very global perspective. I'm going to decide what that perspective is, and we're all going to do that and get on board.
Yeah.
And on one hand, you can't argue with the results.
No.
Like.
But.
Yes?
On one hand, you can't argue with the results. True statement. But.
There's another hand, too.
Well, not even that hand yet.
Oh, third hand.
The third hand is that were the results because of decisions he was making, or were the results because Switch was a hit? So it's like.
Well.
It's like, did you have to do anything at all?
It's a good point to make, but I mean, I do really respect like the work that he did. A lot of, I think, the initial Switch reveal trailer, I think a lot of that was like his vision.
Like brainchild.
Right, so he has an advertising background. He came
does.
up in advertising. People, like a bit of trivia about him is like people love this Zelda Link to the Past rap commercial that they had in Japan. That was his idea.
Right. He's got a creative mind for these kinds of like moments.
Right, he's got a great creative mind. So anything that is like, a big reveal trailer or an ad or, a lot of these kind of like concept videos that Nintendo will put out, like a lot of that is directly from his mind.
Yeah.
This is also the era where like Nintendo Direct was really evolving into this more streamlined thing. I think I give him a lot of the credit for that of like, let's cut out the noise, let's cut out all these other things and like just
focus on the news.
Right, just focus on this.
Yeah.
So I do think it was one part him and one part the product, but I think they came together in this really great way.
Yeah.
That said, like it did come at the expense of a lot of things that were just kind of left on the side, and it's like we're not doing these anymore, and I don't really care to listen to the reason.
I think that was the challenging part. Like this guy was clearly a genius and was very good at the work that he was specifically focused on, which is like you said, like these kinds of reveal moments, these kinds of streamlining opportunities for things like the Direct. But the part that was really challenging for us is that there was no longer a willingness or even sort of a, like a want to understand different markets. Like it was like, this is the global mindset, which is my mindset, and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And as much as we kind of try to share, like, well, this is the perspective from, the U.S. market, or even NOE, like this is the perspective from the European side. Like it's like we don't care, we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it's fine because like it worked, but on the other hand, it was tough for us because we basically felt like our hands were completely tied.
Right. And when you would pitch him something, and he would give you the feedback. First of all, like the feedback would take like 20 minutes. You would get a 20-minute explanation.
Speech,
of like, and that's like a skill that he uniquely had. It was like, I don't think I can just talk uninterrupted for 20 minutes.
I know, that's pretty tough.
He could do it.
Maybe start a podcast.
And born to podcast. Like the rationale of what he was telling you, like based on his worldview, it made sense. Based on the worldview that he had that he was giving you.
Right.
I mean, sometimes we had a different view on things.
Right.
So it made it hard to refute what he was telling you. It's like we simply have a difference of opinion on these things sometimes, or a different perspective sometimes. And lo and behold, sometimes down the line, like his view would evolve to take on yours. But in that moment, it's like, if this is not in my perception of things, it ain't happening.
Yeah, and it's almost like if this is not in my perception, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And so you come to this impasse where there's really nothing you could say or do to change the situation you were in.
Right.
So you felt very stuck.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, you're right, you just kind of like let time pass let it sit for a while and then go back to it maybe. And sometimes that will help to shift the opinion a little bit. Sometimes it never did. And you could not get past.
Right.
It was like an Elden Ring boss. You just could not do it.
Yeah, so my memories of him and my experiences with him are interesting because on one hand, like I really respect him and the work that he did and the important role that he has. But on the other hand, like we had so many like really frustrating moments with him where it's like we know and like all the way up to like, NOA leadership, it's like we all know this would be a great thing for our market.
Yeah.
Just could not get it past him. And he was often the final step.
Right.
And it led to this really uncomfortable thing in our final years of really understanding like what is his role
pertaining to us.
Specific to NOA. Because we would hear all the time, within NOA, it's like, we don't need, NOA can make its own decisions. We don't need the approval. And it's like, well, but be sure to present your idea.
Yeah.
And it's like
but
which one is it?
Which one is it?
Yeah.
I will say that it was kind of interesting because he actually spent a few years in the NOA office.
Yes, he did.
In our office, in the Redmond office, and he lived next to my mom in Cupertino, so that was really weird and fun. And the reason why is that they were like, we want to embed him in the Nintendo of America, culture and let him understand the market.
Right.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
And it was really cool.
And he came like knowing almost no English, and he learned so much.
Oh my God, he was amazing.
So, he really like made the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, and it was just cool to have him there, so you could like go and talk to him if you wanted to or whatever. So they made him very accessible, and then and so I think that there were steps taken to try to like broaden the perspective a bit, but I think there was a lot of things that he just believed, and I think he should believe because he was like a lot of the results they kind of speak for themselves. So it's like, why would you change your opinion? So I totally understand why his perspective is the way it is. Like I totally respect and understand that, but I had a really hard time working with him in those last few years, and those meetings, man, those are traumatizing meetings. I don't think I'll ever get over those. Like that will wear on your confidence. Like that is really hard to come back from.
But that point of like, what is his role relative to NOA became like an elephant in the room the more and more we ran into these issues. And I would point blank ask a lot of the powers that be of like, is he our boss? Is he the head of global marketing? And I would get a very wishy-washy answer. Because I don't think anybody wanted to addressly say. So that's why I'll just come out and say I think he is.
Yeah, he is.
Right, because again, if there's something that NOA is doing that he doesn't like, he's going
to cut it.
It's going to go.
And the other thing is that we lost Reggie in that time. We lost Reggie, which was our biggest. He was the one that could go head to head with anyone because he was Reggie.
Right.
And so it was now we didn't have an advocate at all at Nintendo of America. Like everybody else would just be like, well, just defer to Kuratsune-san and he will figure it out.
Right.
And if you say that, then you basically just admitted that he is your boss. So it became really frustrating and really tough. And this is this is in the era of those last 2 years where we were like, why are we here? What is my actual job? That man made me question that a lot. Because after those long meetings where he has given you a 20-minute speech about why your idea is absolutely terrible and why you should never do it, you're like, I'm a broken person now. Like, I have no idea why I'm here. Like, I just don't know. I'm going to go to bed. I don't know. It's 9 o'clock. I don't know. So there was that.
Was a positive advocate for Nintendo Minute. Appreciate that.
Yes.
But again, at the same time, there were a lot of other projects we were doing where he absolutely was not, and he made that very clear. I think he's probably one of the people who did not feel positively about what we are doing now and probably was advocating we got to get these old videos with them off of this channel.
Yeah, probably.
I think a lot of that was his doing.
Yeah, it's okay. I get it. I understand.
On the positive side, really, had this important perspective of like, if you're going to work in marketing, you better play these games.
Yeah.
And was always pushing. And that became kind of an issue in our office because it was like, well, the games are in Redmond. And he's like, I'll play through every single game that we release before it comes out so I can understand it. and know how the marketing fits with the game, which is great.
That's awesome.
But it led to some friction in our office because it's like, well, we
don't have
can't have the
access to
games. Like we only get access to
You're
them
basically putting us in
at certain times.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like, well, is the marketing team in Redwood City getting enough access, and what can we do? And it was just like never really.
Yeah, we always felt like we were at some kind of a deficit.
Yeah. Right.
And we were just like fighting our way out of the deficit, but could never figure it out.
Totally.
You know, it was just really, it got tough towards the end.
Yeah. I had a great moment with him where I was in Kyoto in the summertime for the kickoff for Breath of the Wild when I was kind of leading that project. And it was the time of the Gion Matsuri, which is a big festival that they have in Kyoto.
Really cool.
And we had a very small team that was over there, and he's like, I'm gonna take you all out, and I'm gonna bring out my family, and you're gonna enjoy the Gion Matsuri with my family. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like a really like fun night, and it was cool to see him kind of let his hair down a bit. And
he's fun. Like when you're not in a horrifying meeting where he's making you feel like doggy poo poo, like he is. Awesome. He's a good hang. Like I've shared like car service with him before. He's so nice and like his kids are so cute and he's very sweet. You know, he's really like on a personal level, he's like the nicest person. But when he comes out of business, he's got to do his thing, you know? So I get it.
Like all of us, a very complex person.
Yes.
Our next one is somebody that we worked with extensively in our many years at Nintendo.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love it.
It's the one person, no, I guess we have another one, but not listed on any of these, director or executive officer. Her name is Yasuhiro Minagawa. And he is one of the really longest tenured people working within marketing or communications at NCL. Been with Nintendo since the early Famicom days and is still there.
Yeah.
He's kind of at this point past the formal retirement age, but found a way to stick around.
Right.
And is just such a great fountain of knowledge. He was on the PR team. The PR team in Japan is a very different thing than it is in the United States or Europe. But he has been integrally involved with that, again, since the 80s.
Right. Yeah, he has been, he's just like a pillar of what I think about. When I close my eyes and I think about NCL, I see his face. I literally see his face because that is the person that has just been such like a constant in our career. And like to your point, he was like our day-to-day person. Like we would email him all the time. We would be on weekly calls with him. When we go to Japan, he'd be the person we see. When he comes, when he would come to the U.S., like he was
almost always there.
Yeah, he was always there. Every sort of communications marketing initiative that we were working on, he was there. He was going to be present for those. Every E3 that we were at, he was there. I feel like it would be such a weird place without him, so I kind of am happy. I'm like, maybe you should relax and go and enjoy your retirement. But on the other hand, I'm like, no, you need to be there forever. I don't know. I mean, it just feels weird without him. Like the day that he retires, that I hear that he formally retires, will be like the end. The end.
We're going to do a tribute episode.
We're going to have to pour one out because. Wow, he's just a staple,
He's one of those people who seems to get involved in everything. Like anybody at NOA who had, working directly with NCL, like they know who he is because he's got looped into some email or he popped up in some meeting and expressed some point of view. It's like, is just somehow involved in everything.
Yeah.
And he was constantly traveling with developers when they would come over for these US trips. And the executives.
Like he would translate for Mr. Iwata sometimes.
Right. And he was not as slick with the English as some of the Treehouse people, but I mean, I think
in like a business setting though, he was always called upon.
He was always glad to do it, and was really he was called on a lot. To do that. So we spent a lot of time with him in the U.S. On these trips, and he is just super tight with people like Mr. Miyamoto and all the other executives.
I mean, he's been there for as long as they have, truly. Like, they've just grown up here together.
Right. So as a result, like, he's somebody who does have, like, so much influence as well, because he's seen it all, done it all, like, all these people really respect him. So, like, when there is this, like, question of like, oh, what should we do? Like a lot of people go to him for advice and wisdom.
Yeah, he has the institutionalized wisdom.
Yes.
Like he is the sage in Zelda.
It's so true.
Yeah, and you go into the tiny hut and you see him and you're like, what should I do?
Right. And he just has so many like incredible stories from over the years that he is glad to tell you.
He will tell you.
And again, be involved in like one story, just like randomly that he told us was like how he was involved in the acquisition of the Seattle Mariners when Nintendo was buying that. It's just like a fascinating story. Like if you look up his name, like he'll show up in pictures, and he's often with other developers, and like again through the decades,
the ages,
right?
Yeah.
And very famously, when we visited Japan for Nintendo Live and that typhoon, he gave us the very good advice of stay away from that river. Do not go by the river.
He went into like complete dad mode.
He totally did. Yeah.
And he was like, "I'm going to give you these snacks." He gave us like packs. He
gave us a pack of peanut and told us to stay away from the river.
He was like, "Don't go out. Here, have these almonds and stay away from that river. You're going to drown."
Anything you do, stay away from the river.
But it was very much like, don't get hurt. Like, be careful. And we're like, yes, Minagawa-san. Yes, we would not go to the river. We promise we will. Thank you for the almonds. It was really cute.
I remember he took us out for sake drinking one night, and you got into an argument with him about beauty products. I was like, why are we having this conversation?
I was like, that's not true. You don't know anything about beauty products, Minagawa-san. Are you kidding me?
He knows the art of the conversation.
He does.
Yes.
He did take us on a beautiful nighttime tour of Kyoto.
Yeah.
We have to tell that story in properly when we go to Japan.
Yes.
And remember our wonderful time together.
But again, yes, like, somebody that we work with very closely, but also somebody who has tremendous influence in the company.
Just company knowledge.
Over the years.
Someone just record him. Just talk.
Oh my gosh.
Get that out of his brain. Like,
yes.
What we need is that thing in Harry Potter where you can just take the little memory and put it into the pensive. We need that for him.
Yes.
Because he has a lot of stuff in that head.
Okay, one more to go, and this is probably a name that some people recognize as well, but the role has sort of evolved over the years. His name is Tatsumi Kimishima.
Oh, yeah.
Who is currently retired? But not actually.
Really not.
So let's go through his history. Started in banking, was approached in the 90s by Mr. Yamauchi to become involved in Pokemon, was the CFO of the Pokemon Company, became the president of the Pokemon Company International, and then became the CEO of NOA.
Yeah.
And was really like working in conjunction with Reggie for a very long time. When Reggie was the president,
he was the CEO.
He was the CEO.
Yeah.
And then after that, when Mr. Iwata passed away, he became the president of Nintendo for a couple years.
President,
2015 through 2018 until Mr. Furukawa took over. And at that point, he kind of, again, like we understood, it was like, oh, he's retired.
Yeah.
But then, like
he came back.
We would be working on things. It was like, oh, Mr. Kimishima wants us to know that this initiative or has this perspective. He needs to look at we're like, wait,
I thought he was gone.
I thought he retired. And it's like, oh no. He's still very actively involved, and he's on the board of NOA and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my god,
master.
Okay, I see. There's levels.
Can't get rid of him.
There's levels to this. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, he's. I think they call him an executive advisor on the board now, right? He's basically just like hanging out and like sharing his opinion. Which he also, obviously, by this crazy resume and all of the things that he was involved in, has just really just intricate perspectives of, the history, the everything about the company, just everything about, he's worked at so many different places, at NOA, at TPC. So he just has like all this institutionalized knowledge where I'm sure people will go to him for years and ask him, like, what should I do in this situation? Because he probably will have a good answer.
Right.
Yeah, pretty amazing. We worked really closely with him because he was the CEO of NOA.
Yeah. And then Reggie talked about him a good deal in his book as well, and talked about how important it was that he had a good relationship with him, because it was like this was this kind of conduit to the greater Japan team and all of that. A funny thing with him is like we and often it was you had to send all the press releases.
I did, yeah.
Because he
was
literally
approving
reviewed
everything.
Every press release.
Yeah.
And sometimes he would respond back I am okay with this format.
And we're like, but are you okay with the content?
The format? But what about the rest of it? But it's like you're too afraid to like ask a follow-up. Don't ask a follow-up question.
I just say thank you.
He's a very busy man. Do not ask a follow-up question. Thank you very much.
Before the days of like true email, I used to have to walk those press releases around.
What do you mean the days before true email?
Like when I first started at Nintendo,
fax?
we like didn't have we could not send the press release via email to these people because they wouldn't read it because they weren't on email.
Oh boy.
So I would have to like have a little folder, it's a little red folder that said like press release, and I put a little tab like approve here, and it'd be like, and I would walk it to Mr. Kimishima's office, and then I would set it like with his assistant Junko, who was amazing. I love her so much, and I'd be like, okay, here's a press release. Can you make sure he looks at it by this time? And she's like, okay, come back in a couple hours. I'm like, okay. And then you would literally kind of do your rounds, and you come back, and then he would write a little note for you, like sign it. You know, it was so manual.
Well, good to know we're working in the 1960s.
I
and
know,
2009.
right? Can you believe that?
What do you mean before email? Email was definitely a thing.
That wasn't even before Nintendo had like Microsoft Office, because they refused to use Microsoft Office because it was like a competitor product. So it was like janky email. Anyways, it was
Losing
real.
out those Wii sales to Microsoft Office.
It was a real doozy of
Wow.
a job. Me meeting Mr. Kimishima through these press releases. But anyway,
he's somebody who I think people were a little like apprehensive to approach because again it's like
he's kind of serious though.
He's like if you just like look at him, he has a very serious look on his face.
And also he came from banking.
A lot of the time, right? You don't think of him as like a fun-loving guy, but once he got into this role, like so many of these people, like he would visit more.
It's really
and
nice.
our old boss did such the like PR campaign on him. It was like we're gonna have this fireside chat. And she totally brought out like
a different side
the
of
more
him.
like fun-loving, personable side of him that I think a lot of us like didn't have a chance to see.
Yeah.
Up to that point, which was so great.
It was nice.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, like I'm seeing this other side of this guy. Yeah. I'm seeing the full person versus just the kind of scary guy in the office.
Yeah.
Really important, I think, for our team to see that.
Exactly. He was the one that presented me with the wonderful trophy when I was the office office arms champion.
It was like a back-to-back event. It was like the arms championship, and then it rolled right into this event with him.
Yeah, but he like I shook my hand, gave me the trophy.
And he was watching.
He was watching.
Oh, the pressure.
Remember?
Oh my god.
I put my hair in a ponytail because I knew it's time to work. Time to work. Put your hair in a ponytail, girl.
I had forgotten that. That's amazing.
So funny. And then I also have a great story about finally making it to like the 7th floor, which is the presidential floor of Nintendo headquarters. And it also involves Mr. Kimishima.
When he was the guy.
When he was president of all of Nintendo.
And the year that I led E3, I did get kind of a chance to like, here's 30 minutes with Mr. Kimishima. And it was like, okay, This guy is not what I had perceived him to be.
That was when that whole like sort of PR tour that he went on, his personal brand press tour.
Yeah.
And then leading into working with him on some really cool stuff when he was the president. I was like, oh yeah, I've known this guy for years, but I've never really known him until these last few years.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool to see it.
I also remember when we were at Nintendo Live, like we ran into Doug Bowser in the lobby of the hotel, and he was holding like a doggy bag of some food.
Oh, rice!
And we were like, oh, what's going on here? What you got there? He's like, I just went to dinner with Mr. Kimishima. And we're like, oh, well, what's in the bag? Rice.
It's like really special
so he told me this is the most special rice and that I should take it home and savor it. But he looked very he's like, I'm holding a bag of rice.
It was a lot. It was like a huge portion. But it's like, like in Japan, they give you like the koshikari, the fancy rice.
They know the good rice.
But it tastes the same.
Oh, don't say that. Don't let the rice people come after you for that.
Sorry. I buy the rice.
Hopefully Doug Bowser enjoyed that rice.
I hope he didn't throw it away.
Well, we don't know what happened to that rice.
No, because
my headcanon is that he had a beautiful breakfast of rice.
Maybe he had some, maybe a little pickle on the side.
There you go.
I hope that he ate the rice.
Yes, there you go.
Very important. Anyways.
Well, that's our list of 5 incredibly important people that you might not know.
Yes.
Working at Nintendo headquarters in Kyoto.
These people, though, what are...
We think we know the companies like, oh yeah, Miyamoto, Aonuma, they're making it all happen. There's a lot of people who have a lot of important jobs. We're doing stuff.
They're doing stuff, and I'm very curious about what this group is getting up to. Because Switch 2 is coming out. You know, Kuratsune's song is going to be...
Oh my gosh, he's been working overtime.
He's been birthing a brainchild of how do we reveal this thing? What is that going to look like? When we see the Switch 2 reveal stuff, that's the guy. So then we'll know like what is happening over there.
More Zelda rapping. That's what we're gonna get.
Oh, I hope so. Let's get it.
The rap opera for the Switch.
Oh, yes. Bring it. That's great.
Let's move on to some games we're playing. And like we said at the top, it's a lot of indie games. But just why don't we start with just some quick thoughts on Zelda: A Link to the Past?
Yeah. We both started. You're playing, again, the SNES version. I'm playing the GBA version. It's going great. Like you were saying, tell the people your unique way of playing this game when you were a kid, because I think it's cute.
Well, I was a kid when this game came out, and I definitely played it a whole lot when I was playing my Super Nintendo all the time. And I have this pretty high on my personal list of favorite Zeldas.
Yeah.
And the way I would play it was, I would kind of play up to a point where the game would get really hard, which was like maybe like 2/3 into the game. And then I would just stop and like delete that file and then start another one. And there was just a lot of like, like kids do, just like goofing off and like trying to do little things. I'm like, oh, can I do this trick shot with the arrow? Or can I run all the way across the what
Pegasus boots?
Is there a path where I can use the boots? Just run, like a lot of like goofing off stuff.
Yeah.
It's very different from like how adults.
Kind of like how kids play Minecraft.
Totally, very different from how
Yeah.
adults play games. So like that really is my memory of this game, of just being like this kind of like playground.
Yeah.
And again, that first like half to 2/3 of it, like I really know super well, so I don't anticipate needing to use a guide for that. But the latter part, like I think I've only actually gone through and finished it a handful of times.
Right.
So I probably will, because again, in my mind, it's like, this is where it gets hard.
Oh, but you were a child back then. So
Right. So maybe
it's not so hard now.
I don't know. I still have
maybe
some trouble.
it's harder now.
Still have
I
some
don't
trouble
know.
with these puzzles. So
Could go either way.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah. So my history with this game is I definitely beat it several times, but I haven't played it in a long time. It's definitely been well over 10 years.
Yeah.
Since I've last played this game. And you know me, I have like the worst memories. So absolutely I do not remember. And I don't think I played the GBA version that much.
I never had that version.
I think I really played the SNES version way more.
Right.
This is one of my rare SNES games that I actually owned and didn't rent. So I did play this game multiple times.
I mean, that was a must-have game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Mario and Zelda game, you have to have.
Right,
You have to play
right.
that. So I am now playing the GBA version, which is pretty cool. And I do, like, things are coming back to me pretty easily. Like, I think we're both kind of wrapping up like the second. You might have
That first quest to get the pendants, we're wrapping that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that pretty well. Like
Yeah,
I kind of I was like, oh yeah, this is
Right,
coming
right.
back. I knew sort of knew exactly where to go and who to talk to and all that stuff. But the game really holds up really well. It just works so well still, and I'm really like having a lot of fun with it again, and it's really bringing back memories of like, oh yeah, this is what, like top-down Zelda, like these dungeons, like this is like this formula that really works, and I've really missed it. So
okay.
I'm really glad to, I don't know, just go back to like this classic Zelda formula and like seeing that it is something that is just iconic. Like it makes me feel happy about that,
Yeah. The other thing that I'm sort of realizing is, Super Metroid kind of has this reputation of like, no, this is the like best atmosphere in a Super NES game, and it definitely has really great atmosphere, but I'm like, this one's pretty good too. Like that opening scene with the rain.
I was just gonna say, the opening scene does not have to go that hard, but it does, and I love it.
But then also, like when you go into a dungeon, it's kind of scary in there. The music's kind of spooky. It's like, I don't remember these dungeons being this atmospheric. And they had just enough technology to pull that off.
Yeah.
And it was very, it remains very impactful. So I was like, we should probably put this game in that conversation as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, how can this game that is just, again, it's one of those things where you're just surprised by when you go back to it. You're like, just a bunch of little pixels.
Yeah.
I could barely see the little tiny sprite, you know? But it's so cinematic, the way that they put it together, especially that beginning sequence. You're like, man, like this is like an all-time great cinematic beginning to a video game, but it came out so many years ago.
Yeah.
But you play it again, you're like, yeah, this is totally could stand up to any cinematic opening of a modern game. So very impressive the way that they were able to do that.
All right, well, I think we're going to talk no more about this game until our spoiler cast happens at the end of the month. So we'll have it all wrapped up and we'll have a big meaty conversation about it then.
Yeah, can't wait. And we're so lucky that we get to play this before Echoes of Wisdom comes out.
Yeah.
It's just perfect.
SteamWorld Heist 2, you've been making a lot of progress on this. What's the latest?
I have been making great progress until I got to this boss that I was telling you about. You had less trouble than I did.
I was able to get through it first try, but my feeling on this game is there are some real like skin of your teeth moments where like, ooh, I wasn't sure for a while if I would be getting out of this alive.
Yeah. I've been having trouble with that boss.
Yeah, that boss, I remember I was down to my last couple hit points. There's also like a lot of missions where alarms will go off, which just means there's like endless reinforcements.
Yeah.
And like it's me running to the evac point like before my last character gets blown up. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just made it. Or
scrapped, as they say, which is horrifying.
Yeah, so that I think that is a common theme for this game. And like there are a lot of difficulty sliders that you can choose. Most of them take it into the harder.
Who can play this game on the hardest level? That's pretty tough.
And when you do die, like it can be a little unforgiving. Like they do give you an option to skip back a certain number of turns, but it's not guaranteed like the right exact number of turns that you might want. Like I might have been starting to go into a bad way around that turn. So I kind of maybe would have liked some other checkpointing.
I know.
For those missions.
It would have been good to have
the missions are getting
pretty
quite long. Like some of those missions will take like 20, 30 minutes now.
Right.
It's like, I really can't do this again.
Totally true.
And then I have not had that moment yet where I completely bust out and like get really mad about it. But I'm getting real close.
To be mad?
To not making it through these missions.
Oh, and then be mad.
I would be mad if if at the end of this long mission I had to like start over, or like that would upset me.
I tried that boss 3 times and I failed.
Oh no.
So I gotta figure out maybe a better loadout, a better team mix. It's so frustrating too because I get to the point where the boss only has about, I've gotten it down to like 8 health. So I really just needed like 2 more shots. But then I would get like overwhelmed by the side characters that I basically ignored for the whole fight because I've been focused on, taking down the boss's health. And they would like one-shot scrap my final characters in 1 turn.
Well, you can kind of like grind in a sense where you could like level up your jobs.
That's what I was doing a little bit.
Maybe that's what you need to do.
So I had left and done a little bit of that, but I do think I need to do a better mix of characters. Something about maybe that I need to switch.
Have you considered getting good, ma'am? Maybe that's something.
I haven't yet, actually.
Maybe that's something you could look into.
Thank you so much for the great advice because I hadn't considered that.
Glad I can help.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit further ahead still. I'm realizing like this game's a lot bigger than I thought it might be.
Yeah, it's
and I've been
really
reading
long.
From some of the reviews that have been going up that it's like, oh, this is like 30 to 35 hours long. You're like, oh, that's a lot more than I expected.
You keep picking your way through it, though.
I keep opening up these new parts of the map that are like really big. But it's still like very engaging. Like I am also getting new power-ups and new abilities for my little submarine, which is great.
Yeah.
I have also found some parts of the map where like the submarine combat is getting kind of hard.
Oh.
And there's like a lot of like cannon emplacements, so it's a lot of like submerge, now come up, now like dodging cannonballs that can't hit you underwater. So it's getting pretty tough.
I like the tiny submarine a lot.
The submarine is awesome.
I still
a great addition.
I still think that is the number one coolest thing about that game is the tiny submarine.
It feels, I realized, remember I was talking months ago about the beautiful mini-shoot adventures.
Oh, your mini-shoot, your precious little mini-shoot.
The game does feel a little bit like that game when you're in the submarine.
Oh.
It's not quite to that level, but there's a lot of similarities.
Your precious,
I love
precious
mini-shoot. I love it.
Next.
Thank goodness you're here. A game we both finished over the weekend, and I think we both really, really enjoyed it.
I loved this game. This was like a very
What is this game for people who don't know?
It's a game set in northern England. You are a tiny little. You look like a used car salesman.
Pipsqueak.
But you're very small. And your job is to go around this town, which is filled with amazing, characters, and the visuals are beautiful, and sort of help them with their everyday lives. And their everyday lives are just a complete ridiculous mess. And it has a lot of like very specific sort of British humor. And
extremely British,
Yeah, and it has a lot of dirty jokes. This game's rated M. First of all, this game, let me just be very clear. It looks like a cartoon, but do not let your kids play this game because it is rated M. You sent me a text message.
Let me be more clear. This game has full frontal nudity.
Yes.
Okay? Let's cut to the chase.
Yes.
Because I was playing, I was like, okay, I know this game is rated M, but I haven't really found anything that would like full on feel M.
And then you saw it.
Bam! Okay, I get it now.
There it is. Thank you so much for showing it to me.
Thank goodness you're here.
Thank goodness you are here. Thank goodness. But yeah, the game is definitely...
I would call it like a playable cartoon.
Yes.
Is what I would call it. Because, again, like, this game now has this reputation of like, oh, this game's hilarious. It's such a funny game. I think this game looks incredible.
This game looks so good.
It looks like you're playing like The Simpsons, basically.
Yeah.
Like an episode of that, like there are no seams that would lead you to think like, oh yeah, this is definitely a game. Like if you look closely at this, like this is exactly
like... Or if you just put all the scenes together into a video, it would be like an episode of a
somebody
cartoon.
playing. Yes. So I don't know how they pulled that off. I don't know how the technology has reached this point, how this small team found a way to make a game look like this.
Yeah.
But it's also just like, a lot of like the camera angles or a lot of like the framing or like...
They even do such smart things with text.
Yes.
With like these interstitials that
the presentation is like amazing.
Yeah, there's something very just clever about the presentation where it just makes you feel like you're playing our cartoon. You're like kind of playing this very specific type of like a Ren and Stimpy type of cartoon where it's like kind of gross.
Yeah.
It's it's very subversive. It has all of this like kind of like double entendre humor.
Remember, we met the developers at PAX last year, and we asked them, is this like universal humor in Britain?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, this is Northern
Yeah.
England humor.
Right.
And I'm still not sure I know exactly what that means, but
well, it's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it now because I play the game. Like, I kind of get the type of thing. Like, you think about British humor, it's very slapstick, and you always get that classic scene where you're playing the music and people are like running into the doors. Like, that's when you think of like British humor, I guess. But this one is even more, I feel like dirty.
You have only 2 buttons, jump and slap. The slapping stuff is very fun. It's really very satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like almost everything in the world is interactive.
Right.
So you can slap almost everything, and there's like some sort of result of like it gets broken or something will happen to it or somebody will react if you slap them.
My favorite part is when you slap that guy's butt when he's in the food truck. And he has to close the food truck because he's like, and the sign says like, too much slap on my bum bum.
There's a lot of Bodhi potential with this game, I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So like the playing side of it's very satisfying. There is a lot of like interweaving between the different parts of this town. But the thing that they did that was great is when you return to a new part of town, like things have changed so much.
Right.
It's almost like it's a new area of like, oh, I need to see what's happened over here now, or what are these people talking about now? So you don't get that fatigue of like, I'm backtracking, I'm back here, I know exactly where I need to go. It's like, no, there's
and different like doors open up.
Yes, there's a lot of newness to it. So it is very elegant in that sense, the way everything connects.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. And I was kind of confused when I was starting to play. I'm like, what is the end result of all of this?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. But like you were saying, as you do these little chores for people, there's like different levels to it. And like every single time you come back to that person again, it's like the next phase of that.
Right.
And eventually you reach the end, right?
Yeah, and it's about, it's only like 3 or so hours long.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people say, oh, that's too short. But it's like, it felt like absolutely the perfect length.
It's the perfect experience.
Because again, like you think about the presentation, again, it feels like, a movie or like a TV show. And it's like, that's about how long that would be.
They should make this into like a cartoon and do like little mini episodes of what our friends in this town is getting up to. Because
Okay.
it's that good.
When you beat the game, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. Like, there's a link to the site, and they're like, if you send us some self-addressed envelope, like, we'll send you a little goodie, for beating the game. And I'm kind of curious, like, what do you get?
Did you send him? We should send him an envelope.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
And we can open it on camera.
What do you think it's going to be?
A sausage.
It better be a meat pie.
Oh!
That's what I want.
Big Ron's Big Pies.
A lot of pie talk, maybe hungry.
The pies did look really good.
So that's out, and yeah, this seems to be a bit of a
Everyone go play this game if you're the right age.
If you're of age, yes.
If you're of age, yes.
If you can handle
or maybe if your mom gives you permission to play.
Oh, all right. Arranger. It's time for your Arranger update. Have you finished Arranger?
I have not finished Arranger because I was playing. Thank goodness you're here.
But you seem like you were so close, right?
I know I'm so close. I need to finish this game.
You need to just
I will
hunker
finish
down and
this
do
game.
this.
I will finish this game. I think I'm only about 30 or so. It depends on how fast I can solve these. The last few puzzles are so hard.
No.
I feel like there is.
Is there any help button or hints you can get?
The thing with this game that's so unique too is that it's sort of like a Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild type of puzzle solving where there are multiple ways for you to solve these puzzles. So it is kind of hard to find a guide or find a solution because you can do it in a variety of ways depending on how you're sliding the world around. There could be multiple results. So that's what's really interesting about it. So it's no, I can figure this out.
All right.
It might not be every time the ideal way to do it, but there are multiple ways to go about this, which is kind of interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. One of the cool things that I was talking about with this game now is that in the late game, you have to control the second character. And basically you have a tether to that character. We were watching the newest Echoes of Wisdom trailer.
Yeah.
And there's that new ability that Zelda has. Was it Bind? Where that tether goes out and basically it's the same distance away from you and you're connected to this other object. That is exactly the puzzle mechanic in this game right now that I'm having a bit of trouble with.
All right.
Because you are sort of thinking about, okay, if I move here, where's this other person going to move? I need him to do this thing so I can figure out this part of it. So, yeah. It's getting tough.
Well, we better have it done by next week.
That's the deadline?
The people want to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Last game is Valley Peaks. And these are all games that we talked about in that video.
And you can see us playing,
You can see us playing it, yeah. So Valley Peaks is a game that we first saw at Day of the Devs last year.
Yeah.
In December. And really caught our eye. It's a game about climbing mountains, which is a genre that I'm extremely into. And there are just a lot of games in that genre recently, which I'm very excited for.
Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. This one is really good.
This is a different one. It's a first-person game where you play as this frog who has these kind of dulcim arms.
Yeah, it's got these little sticky.
Yeah, so you just look and you see a rock and your arms shoots out bendy style, dulcim style, and you just grab on. And
it reminds me of that toy that we had as a kid where it's that arm that you could slap against a wall.
Oh, those
and it
things.
sticks.
I didn't like those.
It was kind of gross.
It's kind of greasy. Yeah. I was like, what is this?
It's got a texture on it.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes it sticky. And it would always get dirty after you
use it once and then
they
pick up all the dust.
Dog hair and stuff. Yeah, anyway, it reminds me of that mechanic of sort of slapping it against the thing. Art style for this game is absolutely incredible.
That's why you should watch the video because I don't know how you would describe this. It's kind of crayon,
pencil, mixed medium.
But they're kind of running it through a lot of filters where I really just can't describe it.
It's almost like someone did a cutting construction paper out collage and then drew over it with colored pencil.
Yeah.
I don't know. Watch the video because it's absolutely gorgeous and it's such a cool landscape that you're climbing in.
You know what? I think making a climbing game must be pretty. Maybe it's one of the harder genres to do because again, I play a lot of these games that come out, and it has about a 50% hit rate with me of whether I like it or not. There was that one from last year, Jusant, that I think you liked it much more than I did. It just didn't work for me.
And then there was Surmount.
And I think there's just something about this genre that's harder to pull off than you might think. I'm still relatively early in this, so I haven't hit like a lot of the really hard mountains, but this is feeling pretty good for me as far as the mechanics.
Yeah.
It's just so easy.
Something about it being first person.
It's just so easy to fall and like lose all your progress that, you know, it just in general can make these maybe frustrating, but you know, climbing the mountains is fun. Walking around the kind of base little town is fun. There's
also you're a cute frog.
There's other like good writing with good characters. Just feels like there's a good amount of stuff to do.
Yeah.
This is one that's not yet out on the Switch, but they have it as like coming soon. So and it's out on Steam, so that's the version that I've been playing. But I like it a lot. Wow.
Wow.
Next week.
What happens next week?
You know what game I'll be playing for next week?
What?
Cat Quest 3! My most anticipated game.
Oh my gosh, Cat Quest.
I can't believe I don't have a code for this yet. I can't believe that.
Where is the
I don't
code?
know. I'm going to try and
Better start to weasel a code.
I'm going to try and look into that. But
get me one too. I want to play.
Nope.
There's multiplayer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
Oh, boy. So
Cats.
exciting. Cats.
Questing with cats, yes.
We want that.
All right. Our Patreon poll for this week is a good lead into the news. And this is also, you know, kind of a follow-up to the video that we did about Nintendo's financials.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
And they were talking about how, well, we've got this goal of selling 13.5 million Switch units for the fiscal year. And as of the first quarter, we sold 2.1.
Whoops.
So we were surmising a little bit of like, well, how do you get to 13.5?
Yeah, we're trying to do girl math.
Because this is your chance to adjust it. And they said, no, we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
So we asked our Patreon subscribers, how exactly might Nintendo get there? And we wanted to see what people thought. There's something different about this poll. Did you notice?
Yeah, I noticed it wasn't a percentage, it was numbers.
So now this is a hot new addition on Patreon.
Oh.
You can vote for more than one thing. Which hopefully people knew that they could vote for more than one.
Oh,
but,
really?
So I don't have a percentage, I just have a total number of votes. So I'll go bottom up.
Lowest to highest, yeah.
With a mere 24 votes, people said there are more games coming that have not yet been announced. Hope Springs Eternal. That big game that's just around the corner. They haven't yet announced it.
Drop that Wind Waker HD. Just kidding.
I'll bet there's a couple games that we don't yet know about for the whole fiscal year.
Oh, for the whole fiscal
through the end of March.
There might be something.
I'll bet there's a couple things, but yeah,
maybe in
I
that
agree.
September.
It's probably not something like megaton-ish.
We'll see.
42 votes for they're going to do absolutely nothing. Keep the faith, and everything will work out.
That could happen. Nintendo is very good about that.
Yeah,
they're very good about just kind of digging in their heels
right?
a bit.
Next, with 84 votes, the very first Switch price drop would
7
happen.
years, no price drop.
Yes,
could be now.
That's something that they could do to get people moving, buying some Switches. And then the clear winner, the 118 votes, was aggressive bundling of hardware with games, NSO, etc. And that's the drum that we've been banging for several months now. We think also the most likely path.
Right. They could really clean up if they have a really, really, great bundle that is very attractive. During the holidays, they could clean up and make most of that. Make up most of that number in the 3 months of the holiday season.
Let's read some responses. Francis Mogat, I apologize for the pronunciation. Francis Mogat says, faith, better known as luck, is not going to help move the needle.
Oh, no.
Nintendo needs something more tangible. We all know they will not drop the price of the Switch. It's already the cheapest console. The Switch already has a plethora of games from its lifetime. I doubt more games will bring in more people. The most enticing proposition is bundles, especially in this rough economy. What if I told you the name of the company literally translated to lead luck to heaven?
Yeah. Maybe my
that absolutely nothing option might look a little
bit more
enticing.
Yeah.
Cerulean Dragon says, I think Nintendo needs to do some work to sustain the tail end of this life cycle. They keep talking about evergreen titles in their financials, all of which are selling for full price. Back on Wii, DS, and 3DS, not only were there price drops on consoles, but price drops on games using Nintendo Selects and such.
Oh, the Selects.
This lowers the barrier to entry for new players. Sure, you could drop the console price, but if someone's held out this long for a Switch and their mind is swayed by a price cut, then I think a $60 game is yet another barrier to entry for them. Rather than bundle games, this will allow gamers to pick and choose their own bundle in a way, picking up a console and a few games for what it would have been used to cost for just the system. I can see this being big with families who may have 2 or more kids. They're tired of seeing bickering over who gets to use the sole Switch in the household.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying, like, if they drop the price, if they have some sort of aggressive bundling, we'll finally get that second Switch. There was people that were saying that. I could see that being like a very enticing thing, you know?
Nintendo Selects is an interesting thing that we did not have in the poll. I feel like...
It wasn't that successful when we were there.
Explain.
I don't think it did as well as we thought it would when we had that line of Nintendo Selects.
I think this may... We need to know the fate of backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
If the Switch 2 is fully backwards compatible, and it is just like this continuation, and it's like your great library carries over, I think they have less incentive to drop that price.
Exactly.
Because it's like, guess what? These are still our premium games. You can continue to play them on the new system. I think it becomes harder.
You devalue it so much.
I think it becomes a harder pill for them to swallow to say, oh, these games that we hope to sell for the next 7 to 8 years, we're going to slash the price on those. I feel like they're going to want to keep that going for a bit longer.
Yeah. Especially if they have to do some sort of creative pricing on the new hardware.
Yeah.
And they might have to use software to like make up some of that revenue.
Right. So that's where,
you lose a lot of your like flexibility if you slash the price now.
Yeah, again, the backwards compatibility becomes this really important pivot point for a lot of what could happen next or how this kind of trickle down to other things.
Oh, yeah.
And again, all the rumors seem to indicate that it is backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
It has backwards compatibility, which is great. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that we have not seen these Nintendo Selects yet.
Yeah.
People remember a while back, people were pointing out like, oh, these games are out of stock. These big games are out of print. And what are they going to be when they return? Because they probably are going to return, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Think about it.
Think about
it. Tay120N64 has our last comment. I genuinely think that Nintendo will just do nothing. Sure, their performance is down from last year, but it's not like they aren't still doing well. They have a solid slate of upcoming titles and have been adding games to NSO fairly regularly. I believe they will keep this low-key momentum going until the Switch 2 launch. Also, if they haven't dropped the price of the Switch hardware by now, I honestly don't expect them to do it until after the Switch 2 releases.
Interesting.
I think do nothing is a very...
it's a very
possible scenario.
Yeah. It won't be great, though, if they do nothing, they don't make the forecast.
Yeah, that would be a bad sign.
That's going to hurt, and that's going to really dampen the mood going into that Switch 2 reveal.
In other news, the stock tanked by like 10% because, well, it was the worst.
No, it was the worst day.
It was not just that. It was the worst day in the Japanese stock market ever.
Yeah.
Literally ever. So, I mean, I think that's kind of, maybe that's cold comfort, but it's like, well, it's not just us. It didn't tank because of something we did. It was the whole thing. It's
not great.
This is truly out of our control.
It's not great, though.
Well, stock goes down, stock goes up. Are you panicking? Have you panicked?
Let's start panicking.
Are you buying? Are you going to be stocking up on toilet paper? Are you going to the Costco to raid the toilet paper?
Not this again.
Are you going to do that?
I'm not ever going to do that again. That was horrible. We shouldn't have done. As humanity, we shouldn't have had to do that.
But the stock is down 10%. I need toilet paper. The stock on toilet paper.
You're like, Nikkei.
Nikkei.
Unrolling that toilet paper.
Let's get into the news.
Okay.
So, like we said, we have this whole video on the new Echoes of the Wisdom trailer, which you should check out. Any other thoughts on that you would like to share in this podcast here?
I'm so excited about this game.
I think this game looks great.
It looks so good. It looks really good.
The
trailer has given me extra confidence in what the gameplay is going to be. And I'm looking forward to it.
Now, one of the things that we noted is that Link is not really present in this trailer, and that was one of the big question marks based on the ESRB rating.
You and I had like a difference of opinion.
Yes, I'm giving you an opportunity now. If you would like to revise your bad take on that, I'm going to give you a moment to do that. An opportunity, a get out of jail free card.
I don't think it was a bad take. I do think Link is going to still be playable in some way.
Like 50% of the game, like you were saying?
I was saying 50%. I do think it probably is less than that.
So you will revise.
Not like
Give us a new number.
Maybe 30%.
That's a pretty big revision.
Stop it.
It's pretty big.
Stop it.
It's almost half.
You said, what did you say?
I said about 20 is
20%.
what I would. I don't want a lot of Link in this game.
Right. You wanted to play as
I do want it to be that Zelda experience that they built it as.
Yeah, and it
the
seems
longer
like it is.
and the longer they wait, it's like I think they probably have one more big beat in them as far as a reveal. If in September or whenever, if it's like, oh, by the way, 50% of the game is Link, I think that's going to be a wait, what kind of moment?
Right.
For people who have been led down this path now for months.
I do think there's something clever they can do on how to integrate Link into this game. And I hope that they do something that is more integrated than now you play as Link for a little while.
Yeah.
Like, I would really love it to be maybe some sort of partnership between Zelda. Maybe Zelda can make like an echo of Link or something.
Oh, that would be funny.
Because he's like trapped in like a crystal.
That's a creative idea.
Or maybe there's some way they can do it where like he still feels like he's in the game, but like he's incapacitated in a way that Zelda has to do most of the gameplay and the work.
Okay.
Because there's something happening when she jumps into the rifts. That's where he is.
Wow.
So I'm wondering like what that game
sounds like you have a 3-hour think piece coming soon.
It's coming.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, exciting. Look forward to that.
Okay.
We have a big game coming to NSO this week.
Oh, yeah.
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team. That's a GBA game, so that's coming for the expansion high-end, high-roller
the high roller tier
of Nintendo Switch Online. That's coming on the 9th of this month. That's this
Will you
Friday.
play this game? Check it out.
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is just like one of those spin-offs that I just don't have that much experience with. There have been a couple of these. I'm glad to try one, but I probably want to try with the best one. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is this the best one? What do you know about this?
I don't really know much about this either.
Yeah.
I played some of the Mystery Dungeon games on DS and 3DS, but really not some of the older ones. So I might need to ask the community about that.
All right. People are pointing out that Pokemon replied
with
to
a little
this tweet with a little like
emoji.
note-taking hand with a pencil emoji.
What does it mean?
What does this mean?
What does it mean?
I'm asking you.
You tell me. What does it mean? Nothing.
Well, I mean, some people were suggesting like, oh, well, this must mean that DS games are coming because it looks like a hand with a stylus.
Oh, gee. Here we go.
And, we have talked about, like, Nintendo does not tease things. Nintendo does not do that. This is Pokemon, though.
Yeah, they do tease things.
If they want to tease something, they could. And they could say, Nintendo, we're going to do this because we want to tease this.
I don't think so.
I don't know. It's hard to tell. This is so vague. It's hard to tell exactly what it means. I think everybody would like more Pokemon games to come out, and I think what people really want are the mainline games.
Right.
I'm not sure how this game and that emoji equals that result, so I don't think I'm going to say
I don't think it's anything.
that. Why do you think those games have not come out yet on NSO?
I don't know.
What's the deal?
Do they have some sort of bigger plans for that game? Do they have like a remaster or something like that
I wonder
coming?
If, they have Pokemon Bank. I wonder if they would want that to be compatible with Pokemon Bank. Maybe. I wonder if that's like, we need a Switch 2 to be capable of doing this. With we need the next gen of NSO to be, maybe that's it?
Yeah, or they could be holding back for
I don't know.
a bigger moment.
They have a bigger reveal in mind that's going to be aligned with something else. I'm sure they do have a plan. That's Pokemon's way of thinking. And again, these games have been unavailable for a good while now, since the 3DS went offline with the eShop. So I do think they have a plan. It's obviously not the immediate release of everything that we would want, but I think we'll get these eventually.
I think we'll get these eventually, and I think they have some sort of big-brained galaxy mind plan for it that is important to them, but maybe not as important to everybody else.
Yeah. Who just wants to play it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next couple news stories are
real bummer.
Are bummers.
So get ready.
So let's start with Bungie. So Bungie is shrinking from 1,300 people to 850 people. 220 of those people are getting just laid off. 155 of those people are moving to jobs within Sony. And then 75 of those people are moving to a new studio. And their CEO, Pete Parsons, released this pretty long statement explaining, what's going on and what happened. And it was very much the same story that we heard and have been hearing again and again of, in the pandemic, we expanded too aggressively, and we have not been able to, match the level of our expansion with the money that's been coming in.
Right.
So it's kind of a cell phone, and now we have to do what we need to do to correct that. And it sucks.
We are running in the red, says the CEO of Bungie. Ouch.
Yeah, it's, our rapid expansion ran headlong into an economic slowdown, downturn in the games industry, yada, yada, yada. They do mention a quality miss with one of the Destiny expansions. But, this is really a red flag because, Destiny is just one of the, long-running games of, in the live service category. I think people, if you're not following it closely, like, oh yeah, Destiny, they must be doing well. They're still running that.
Yeah.
And, putting a lot of resources into it, still seems to have a very active player base. So again, it's like, well, if they can't do this, then who can?
Fortnite?
Fortnite. They laid off people too.
That's the thing with these live service games, though. It's like, that's a lot of eggs in the basket.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet that, you have to do so much to sustain that kind of, what do they call it? MAU, monthly active.
They've been going for about, I think they've been going for about 10 years. Like, you have to basically be perfect every
single time.
Every day over how many years you're going to hope to sustain this game.
So much pressure. You don't have a chance to sort of start fresh and try to redo it, Mm-hmm. So you're just kind of sitting in this. And you're probably doing a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul, I feel like.
Yeah.
In this situation, and at some point it's going to catch up to you.
Right,
and it's going to be unsustainable, which is what's happening here.
Yeah, so they did talk about how those people who are moving to a new studio, they were working on a game that hadn't been announced.
Okay.
So that's getting kind of absorbed into Sony, and they're starting this new studio to work on that. Some of the Destiny creative leads, Luke Smith, who somebody I actually know a little bit from his days in editorial before he moved over to Bungie, but had been just kind of the face of Destiny. It sounds like he is not continuing on with the company. So I just don't really know what the future of them is. And especially if you're Sony, it's like, well, we acquired you to be
a cash cow?
kind of our expert in live service games where we have these big aspirations, but clearly
it's not really working.
The same problems that we're hoping to avoid, you are experiencing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What should we do next?
I don't know what they're making of all of this, and it's just a bummer because Bungie is one of the great studios in the industry and has such a great track record, and it's just discouraging. Of man, is there anywhere that things are going well?
No.
It seems like it's not.
There isn't. Here,
it's great. Things are great here, yes.
But there's only 2 people here, so that's why.
It's great for the 2 of us.
Oh, no.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, people are calling for the CEO, Pete Parsons, to really step down because it's well, who made all these decisions that led to all these people going? People are also pointing out that, after the Sony acquisition, he was buying all these classic cars, spending millions of dollars on these...
It's just the same story over and over again.
It is literally
it's extremely annoying to hear and frustrating.
Right.
Because
it's like if he gets sent away, he's going to get the golden parachute. So who's the joke on?
Exactly.
I don't know.
It's just I'm so tired of hearing this because these people are awful.
Yes.
And it's just, again, it's you really just get stuck in this, literally the same story over and over again of these poorly managed companies.
Well, we're going to see how tired you are of it with our next story. Game Informer closing, which again, we did a whole dedicated video on that.
This one shocked me to my very core. And it was interesting because there was a lot of people that were like, I don't really know about Game Informer because they were outside the US, but this is such an integral part of games media here, and just scared me because it was oh my gosh, an institution is
right again. This was something that we would always share with people within Nintendo of hey, here are the list of the magazines with the biggest circulations in the United States. And it was, again, always number 1 was AARP, the American Association of Retired People.
Yeah.
They had a magazine. It was Oprah Magazine and all these super mainstream magazines. And there was Game Informer with a circulation in the tens of millions. And we would use that. Look, we have to look at the reach that they have. Look at the influence that they have. Look at how many people they can get to. So we should do this thing with them.
It was not just us. It was the entire industry that really valued this and saw this as like a prestige.
For a long time was just like fighting amongst itself to get, the coverage in Game Informer.
The coverage was so important.
So, and then just out of the blue, they shut down. And it's clear that they were, not headed in the right direction.
Right.
But for them to just shut it down, and it seemed like could you not sell it off? Is there not?
Could you not keep one piece of it?
Is there not some organization that would want to find a way to continue this? Mm-hmm. Just pulling the plug on it seems like a very callous and just cold thing to do.
It was super cold, and it was the way that it was handled was so weird and horrible.
And again, just in a business sense, it's there is probably some money that you could make to move this on to somebody else. So if you're a company that needs money, just shutting it down and deleting everything and saying this doesn't exist anymore, is is that really the smart thing to do? You do have an asset, you have a thing, you have a name that people know. You have a property that people like.
Yeah.
You can do something with that. And instead you just threw it in the trash.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Come on. So we were, that was kind of in the moment that we did that video. Mm-hmm. Now there's a couple other developments. It seems like whoever was running the Game Informer Twitter feed put out, a much more personal note, kind of calling out all of the magazine staff and talking about how they're heartbroken by what's happened.
Yeah.
That immediately got deleted, and now that Twitter account has been deleted. And
then the site got
just
deleted.
Gone. And then, on GameInformer.com on Friday when this happened, there was just sort of a splash screen with their message, which people say might have been written by AI.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like it was a
And now if you go to GameInformer.com, you just get a 504 error. So that thing's just gone.
Oh,
and that really sucks because there's so much work.
I know.
It's decades and decades of work
33
archived on there.
years
It's
of
where did that go?
Who has that? Someone downloaded it, right?
I mean,
someone can do it.
We are familiar with this experience of having your work on somebody else's thing, just kind of going up in dust. In our case, we had the foresight to think that this might happen.
Yes.
We have all of that stuff.
We have it.
I really feel for all of these people over the years who had their work just, vanish. I don't know if they have all of that. And all these people now who are looking for new jobs, it's they might need that.
For a portfolio? Yeah, they
like,
actually might need that.
It's well, what have you done? It's well, I did this thing that no longer exists. Oh my gosh. What a mess.
What a nightmare.
What a terrible way to handle this.
And some of these people are our personal friends. I just feel so bad. They did not deserve this end to all the dedication that they poured into their jobs and work and the passion. It didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to be this way.
Yeah. So our friend over at MinMax, Ben, he came from Game Informer, and he's been doing a lot of good work to sort of archive what Game Informer had and really celebrate it. So you should definitely check out the important work that he is doing. But I feel like
if you have some knowledge of how to help to do something like this, to archive it once a site's been taken down, you should maybe reach out to him.
Right. And we were also saying, again, they have, this room's large. They call it the Game Informer Vault of just all the games, all the stuff that they received over the years. What happens to that? We don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Is it just going to end up in the Minneapolis GameStop for sale? What is going to happen with that? So I feel like we've not heard the last of this. I feel like there's more to come.
I hope that there can be a banding together to do something to help save some of the stuff at least, right?
I mean, I'm still optimistic that a guardian angel or a good soul can step in and make something positive of this.
Please
resurrect this somehow and make that acquisition from.
Are you
GameStop? I don't know because games media is a very bad place in the United States now. It's only just the juggernaut of IGN and GameSpot and all the other things that they have acquired.
Yeah.
And in print, there's really nothing. And part of that's because that's not what people want as much.
Not how they consume news anymore.
But it feels like there's still a place for that. And, there are a couple success stories like Nintendo Force, which is a Patreon run thing, which is great that, they've been going for a good long while. So it's great that exists. It's what is the new model for this?
There's got to be a way. And I really believe what you were saying, where it's this is a brand, a product that people know.
Right.
So there's got to be a way to modernize it
Yes.
And they did have
There's a lot you could do with that.
an online presence, a presence on social, video presence. Like they had all of that. So is there a way?
I'm going to look at, because they had all these, places on the internet where they do stuff. I'm just going to look on YouTube now. What is Game Informer? Because again, I was like, those things
is it gone?
Just vanished. So the Game Informer YouTube is
still there.
If that's still up. But for how long? For how long?
Download the videos now.
Because again, if they just like dumped GameInformer.com, like what's next?
Oh my gosh.
There's probably some guy who's like, well, what do I have to delete now? What's left to delete?
I just saved the
let's just dust our hands of all of this.
I just saved the rapid fire Mr. Aonuma and Mr. Miyamoto video.
Yeah.
Because I like that video a lot and I don't want it to go away. So I saved that.
They had 740,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah. That's what
There's all these people that you could reach with this name. Come on.
Someone can do something with this. I really feel like.
This is why GameStop's days are numbered.
I'm so depressed.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Great moment to say everything that we do here is made possible by our Patreon subscribers. Great moment to support individual creators.
Yes.
I imagine that some of these people might go into a space where they are working independently. Our friend Brian Shea, he very smartly spun off his podcast, All Things Nintendo.
Yeah.
He has a Patreon. Support him. Check him out.
You should do that. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great podcast about Nintendo, all things Nintendo. Look that up. But yeah, it just feels like this is a path, the only path for a lot of these people.
Right. And this is probably going to end up being some of the only places you can hear discussion about games. It can be we really try to cultivate a community where we can have positive discussions about our biggest passions together, which is video games.
Yeah.
And with everything else around us absolutely imploding into the ground, this might be the only place.
So look us up, but also just spend some time on Patreon and see if there's other video game creators that you want to support, because that support means everything to them.
We'll link Brian's Patreon in the description box.
Yes. All right, let's get into some questions from our community. Start with a question from Baby Chris. Howdy, Kit and Krysta. Valve has made significant changes to the way demos work on Steam, even letting players post demo user reviews. My question is, what is the most interesting, engaging way you've seen companies handle demos to players? For me, it was PlayStation's PS3 Core before PS Plus. It was an interactive monthly subscription that included gaming news, behind-the-scenes content, and demos. Did you ever have this subscription? Do you have a favorite storefront that handles demos well, or do you miss the days of Pizza Hut demo discs and Gaming Magazine demo discs? Thanks.
Oh my gosh. The Pizza Hut demo disc was amazing. I do remember that.
PlayStation Core, I remember being kind of dead in the water like the moment it came out.
Yeah.
maybe it was
very expensive.
Maybe it was ahead of its time. But I do remember when I was at Namco, I was like, well, they wanted to do stuff. I was like, what is this? Do people actually use this?
Yeah, how many people are actually subscribed to this?
It felt very shaky from day one.
Yeah.
I do really like the magazine demo disc.
Yeah.
Because it was at a time where it was there was no way to download a demo.
Right.
It felt like this very rare and precious thing. And you might buy a magazine just to get the demo disc. Oh my gosh,
totally.
I can play this game before it comes out, or I don't have to buy it. I can check it out this way. What an amazing thing that was.
The other thing that I remember so clearly in what we used to have to do, because there were no downloadable demos, is you had to go to a store to play a demo at the store. I still have still have such a core memory of me going into Fry's Electronics.
Oh yeah.
And playing WarioWare on the original DS.
Oh my gosh.
And I would beg my dad to take me there, and he did. I really didn't have to beg him that much because he really liked going to Fry's. And I'd be like, can we go to Fry's? And he can look around the computer stuff, and I would play WarioWare.
Oh.
I was so obsessed with that demo. And now it's you have no incentive, to really do that.
Yeah, you just see those in stores, and it's
I don't
need that.
You don't need it. You don't need it because you have videos that you
There's
can
so
watch.
many ways. Yeah.
You can download a demo if it's available or whatever. What I really like nowadays that people do with demos, and I hope that all devs do this, is if you have a demo for a game, let me transfer the data into the main game. That's what I want.
That seems like it's become the standard for most
especially
games.
for like big RPGs.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just want to. I love this. I love to play the demo. That's great. But I also would like to like not have to replay the first 20 minutes of the game when I buy the game.
Yeah.
You know, like that seems like a very good quality of life thing.
Yeah,
To put
yeah.
into all demos.
There was also the kind of shady practice of putting a demo for a really anticipated game as part of a kind of a lesser known game. So if you wanted to get the demo for Metal Gear Solid 2, you had to buy Zone of the Enders.
That was shady.
If you wanted the demo for Halo 3, you had to buy Crackdown. Crackdown's an awesome game.
Yeah,
So,
but you still really wanted
it's
Halo
like,
3.
This is kind of a scummy thing to do.
It's a little scummy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, we're gonna get the name for this other big game out, but yeah, I think a lot of people just bought those games to play the demo.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to do it.
Yeah, because it kind of taints your experience of the game that you had to
Yeah.
buy. You
Yeah.
felt like your hand was forced.
Right.
So that wasn't great.
So yeah, I think we're in a better place with demos now, even though maybe they don't feel as special because there's so many, and in some cases
Yeah.
it feels expected. But it is good to have that access.
I will say that there is a way for you to mess up a demo too. Like there were several Nintendo demos for like
The Mario versus Donkey Kong. That was just like
and the Princess Peach Showtime one.
what?
Both of those demos were
those are not great
such
demos.
not a great
Yeah.
showcase of those games.
Yep.
And then you play those games and you play like just scratch the surface a teeny bit more and you're like, oh, this game is so much better than what this demo showed me. Like it had the opposite effect. So don't do that. You know?
Kai X is next. Hey, Scooby Gang. While both of you claim to not be brave enough to play horror games, you've both sung the praises of Resident Evil 4 and Alan Wake 2. So my question is this. What are your top 5 horror games? Do you even have 5?
I know.
I know.
Let's see. I feel like we are scared by specific things that are different.
Oh.
You are scared by jump scares. You don't like jump
very
scares
scared of jump
in
scares,
games
yes.
or movies.
Uh-huh.
I'm scared by gore. Like I really don't love gore.
You don't like being chased? We know that about you.
I don't like being chased. I don't want to see someone's guts, like coming
Oh,
out.
see, I'm not.
See, you say I'm saying you're not scared.
I'm not worried about that at all.
So and I don't want to be grossed out. Like there's some parts of Resident Evil I was really grossed out. I also don't like clowns, which also wasn't Resident Evil. I didn't like that. In 7, remember the clown? That was bad.
Okay.
I really don't like that.
Okay.
So I feel like there's some like quote unquote horror games that I'm better at handling. Like Alan Wake is one of them where it's not that kind of gory. It's more atmospheric horror. So I would put like a game like Alan Wake, a game like Control, at the top of my like horror game.
Did you say
list.
Control is a horror game? It's definitely creepy.
Creepy moments.
It's very creepy.
I guess it maybe not a horror, not survival horror, but kind of like Alan Wake though, right?
It's very creepy. Yeah.
It has like that sort of like the sort of the vibe is very scary, but the actual gameplay, you're not like being jump scared. Oh yeah, a little bit. You're not being shown someone's guts coming out.
All right.
I guess. Yeah.
I only want to talk about one game, and that game is Condemned.
I don't even play that game.
What? Condemned was an Xbox 360 game published by Sega, made by the other Monolith, not Monolith Soft. Just an amazing game, and you're basically like playing. You're like a cop investigating some creepy stuff that's going on, but like just really atmospheric. This is the one that has the mannequins that sneak up on you. Like you turn around, the mannequins getting closer.
Yeah, that's scary.
You're fighting like it's just like most of it's just like normal people. It's like hobos in an abandoned warehouse, but like you'll see them like flash across the screen. Like what was that?
What was that? Yeah.
And then they're gonna like bust out at you and like really like visceral like hand-to-hand combat with like really interesting weapons. Like you like a paper cutter. You like pull the thing off of a paper cutter and like whack this guy with that.
I don't want that. That sounds really scary.
But just like a real mastery of like what makes a game scary. And I remember this is when I was like, living with friends, and like we agreed we could only play this game in daylight hours
as a group
with all of us together.
Yeah, that's good. That's helpful.
Because we're like, this game is too scary.
It's too scary.
We can't handle this.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only way we can play this game.
That's a good idea, though. Play it together.
But that game is so good, and that would be really cool if that series could come back. I think they made 2 of those and then they stopped.
Sounds so scary.
There's one where you get chased by like a zombie bear. That's pretty scary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Zombie animals are pretty scary.
Pretty scary.
Yeah.
Gartooth says, hi Kit and Krysta, what are each of the top 3 games you are most excited for coming out for the rest of the year?
Okay. Definitely Zelda and Brothership.
Okay.
And Assassin's Creed. I think are my top 3.
I think the trailer today definitely cemented Zelda in mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Astrobot.
Oh, yes. I keep forgetting about Astrobot.
I'm going to say Astrobot on mine.
Cat Quest?
Cat Quest, yes. Another one that is coming out soon that I've had my eye on is Warhammer Space Marine 2.
Oh, yes. You've been talking about that.
But again, I want to see some reviews for that first before I completely go all in on that. What were your 3? You said
Zelda, Brothership, and
Assassin's Creed. Yeah, Assassin's Creed I'm very excited for too. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else, because we just did that video.
Of like games we were skipping and playing.
It's probably something I'm missing, but yeah, I'll say those. So some of those are coming up pretty soon. Cat Quest. I'm not joking when I say Cat Quest. I'm super excited for Cat Quest.
I'm excited for Cat Quest. It's so cute.
Jason Ball 34 asks, hi, recently I heard there was legislation in California being considered that would give employees of companies the right to disconnect from their employers during non-work hours. As in, you would not be required to respond to emails from your boss during your dinner with your family. I remember you guys talking about how urgent emails would come in at all hours of the day at NOA. If this kind of legislation went into effect in Washington, how significant of an impact would it have on Nintendo's operations? How would they adapt to this change?
I don't think they would care at all.
They would find some workaround where that would go into the thing that you sign of like, I acknowledge that this is not something this is an around the clock position and I may be needed to blah 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 and I waive my right to
you would waive your
whatever.
Right. Yeah. 100% because this is a company that is very global and they cannot let you do this because Japan and all the other regions are on different time zones. So you cannot you can't do this. You literally can't do this. And while there wasn't like a spoken written mandate that you have to be available around the clock, it was sort of an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
And you would get penalized for not being available, during like reviews or during promotion time. Like that would be something that would come up. So you basically were incentivized on your own to be available and to be responsive.
There is a thing that they write into all the job descriptions where it's like ability to function in a fast-paced and high-pressure environment.
Yeah.
That I always thought was really aggressive. And a lot
of job descriptions.
Even when I was doing like job descriptions for like people on my team, I'd ask them like, "Can we take that out? Like that sounds." And they're like, "No, that's just like boilerplate stuff. We have to keep that in there."
Yeah.
But that's like, it's kind of like a bummer thing to put in there. Like this is gonna suck.
But you do have to have that ability.
Right, you do. But it's like there's ways to like smell that out when you're, filtering down candidates, I think.
The people that didn't have that ability didn't last at all. They couldn't make it.
No,
it would be like 1 month and they'd be like, okay, I can't do this.
Right.
So it's true.
But yeah, I mean, like there's always like examples of this. Like there's like the non-competes. It's like, no, they'll find a way to stick it to you some way or another.
You're not supposed to even have that.
That goes around, whatever the quote-unquote law is.
Yeah.
They can find a way.
You sign your life away when you sign that contract with them. I would suggest everyone review your onboarding contracts for your jobs very carefully.
Yeah.
There's probably not anything you can do about it if you want to work at that company.
But you can't negotiate it away.
You cannot negotiate it away.
They're not going to change it.
But at least you can be aware of what you are signing away. Because it's going to be a lot and you're going to be shocked.
Exactly.
By some of the stuff that you signed. And I signed that contract when I was 20 years old. So I really didn't know what I was doing. So anyways.
VGM Life is next. Hi, Kit and Krysta. While the Wii is considered a success because Nintendo sold a lot of systems, I would argue that the audience engagement with its software library was not as impressive. You yourselves used the term waggle, a term that many enthusiasts at the time used when being dismissive about the Wii relative to its competitors. Do you think the Wii generation would have played out differently if the classic controller accessory was bundled with the console? Would third parties have approached the system differently? Ultimately, would the audience engagement have been different? Thanks.
Such an interesting thing to look back on the Wii, because while we were in it, it was such like, it was held up on such a crazy pedestal of gaming doing something that could never have been done before. And this idea that Nintendo had, this wackadoo idea that crazy old Nintendo had about expanding the gaming audience can possibly never happen, but then it did for a little while. That's the thing about the Wii that's really interesting, is that you expanded the audience in the moment, but they never became long-term fans of Nintendo. And then it became a little bit of a detriment, because the brand of Nintendo got so associated with seniors bowling that there was a lot of fighting that we had to do in the Wii U days, and you know, it was much better in the Switch days, but in the Wii U days to like sort of fight that perception. So yeah, I think this like singular focus of motion controls and making it accessible and all that stuff did come at a price that in the moment was hard to say like, I'm going to pay this, or hard to say like, I don't care about paying this price, but afterwards I think you really felt the weight of that price that you just paid.
It's an interesting what if, but I do think it needed to have the exclusive focus on the waggle to stand out.
Right.
Otherwise, it is literally 2 GameCubes duct taped together. You know, that's what it would be. Yeah. It's like, what is the reason for this system to exist?
Exactly.
And you had to have the exclusive focus on the waggle to get people to pay attention, and all these different people coming up with ideas for it. I don't think people would have bought into coming up with ideas for the waggle, whether they're good or not. People would have just been like, whatever, we're going to make a normal game using this classic controller.
Right.
So I think you had to have that.
You had to go all in on this.
Exactly. It was like, we really need to shake things up, and that's what they had to do at this time, because, you know,
it was not going well.
Things were not going well. Every system was selling less and less. So, yeah, it was not a long-term, did not have staying power, but I do think that was the right decision for them.
Yeah. At least brought the brand back from the brink of, you know, being irrelevant.
Totally.
And you needed to do that. You needed that, like, jolt to have it sustained to now. Yeah. You know, and obviously they had a great jolt with Switch as well. So, you know, it's very cyclical, up and down, whatever. But you hope that you get to a place where you do have that, like, ecosystem where you bring somebody in through some sort of way that's very broad. It's like everybody is going to come into Nintendo differently. Are they waggling their way in through a Wii remote? Are they going to a theme park? Are they watching a movie? Are they playing with the Lego? Whatever. They're coming into it and then they stay in.
Right.
You know, that's the dream of every brand. Can they do it? Can they do it, you know, for long term? Like, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah. All right, our last question is from Zoroid. Hey, Kit and Krysta, Nintendo had to strike a delicate balance with the Switch hardware due to its hybrid portable nature in terms of its battery life, screen size, controller size, etc. Assuming the successor bears a similar form factor, how would you like to adjust the sliders for these elements to suit your preference?
Okay.
So we can choose 1 to 5. We'll do these one at a time. More battery life is 1. 5 is more powerful hardware.
I see. I would opt for more powerful hardware. So maybe like slide it to a 3-4.
Well, a 3 is right in the middle.
4.
Yeah. I'm also going 4.
Yeah.
I mean, these days, like, there's so many things you can do to deal with
charge
a battery. It's like everything's got a charger. Everybody's carrying their anchor battery where they can charge stuff. Like that. That is not the problem that it once was.
Yeah, even on an airplane, there's like plugs.
Yeah, it is a bummer when you're playing like a Steam Deck game that like oh boy, it's going
you
fast.
were playing some game that was like 2 hours later, it was like dead.
Kanitsugami, which I'm playing on a Steam Deck, like it really eats that battery really fast. I don't think that's a great experience, but I think for the most part, I'm glad. I don't get too worried about battery life these days.
I'm not either. I feel like there's so many other ways.
There's ways to deal with it. All right, next, bigger screen size at 1. On the other end, less portability and heavier to hold.
I can't do heavier. I'm going to keep it at 1. Because I think the OLED screen size and look is amazing. And I'd be perfectly happy if it just stayed exactly like that. How much bigger do you need?
I'm curious about how these are on two ends of the spectrum, because you'd think if you're making a bigger screen, I mean, maybe it's got more guts to make it more powerful. Is that...
Oh,
what is the argument for choosing less portability and heavier to hold?
My hands are too small. I cannot.
I guess if you're cramming more tech, like more raw power maybe, it's going to get bigger.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 2, and I'll favor the bigger screen size. I mean, there is a limit to how big it can be before it starts to be like, is this
like
really
unwieldy?
Is this really a handheld? Remember when everything's like, we need things small. We need things, if it's a
need
handheld,
a micro.
it's got to be tiny.
Put it in
It
your
needs
pocket.
to be microscopic. I got to fix it. There's an obsession with
Remember the pocket?
There's an obsession with sticking things in a pocket. I've never put a Game Boy, I've never put a
You could fit a Switch in your pocket.
I've never
though.
did that.
But you could.
Why would you?
But you could.
Fine.
I mean, I don't have this problem.
Fine.
I carry a purse, so I can just.
Fine. So okay, so
I
interesting.
can't hold this heavy thing.
You voted for more powerful hardware, but less portability. You voted against less portability. I think you're counteracting your choices here.
I want.
You're confused.
I want more portability is what I want. So what
Okay.
number does that need to be?
You tell me. You tell me. 1. Let's move on to the next one. Small compact controllers is 1, and 5 bigger controllers with grips. I'm assuming this is like a not a Pro controller, but like a Joy-Con situation.
With like a better hold, yeah.
Yeah. Where would you
Joy-Con.
put the original Switch Joy-Con on this spectrum?
1.
Yeah, I think I don't see how you could make that any smaller.
I feel like if you made it any smaller, no one could play this
Yeah,
thing.
I don't
And I
think-
have a tiny hand.
I don't think you could make it smaller.
So there's no way anyone
Yeah.
else could play it. Maybe a 3, right in the middle, because I think we need to improve the Joy-Con so that it's a little bit more ergonomic, because right now it does feel a little like not super stable. But I wouldn't want it to be too, again, portability and heavier to hold is a very big statistic. It's a very important statistic for me, and I do not want it to be heavy or big.
Yeah. 3 is an interesting one. I'd be curious to look at what a 2 looks like in this.
Oh.
Like if we just made it just a little bit bigger and just a little more ergonomic,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Like, I like that shelf on the back of a Wii
Really
U
like that.
gamepad.
Yes.
Even if they just added that in, just for you can rest it on your
next row of fingers.
of fingers. Even that would really
Make
help.
a big difference.
I'm not having this issue with my Switch. I don't know. You don't play that much in handheld mode, but I feel like my Joy-Con kind of slides a little bit out.
Oh, some
the
of my
groove.
Joy-Con, they totally don't stay in the rail.
And I'm
That's
always-
why you need a magnet.
Don't you go there with the magnets.
But
the magnets are not going to be as...
the point of a magnet.
It's going to like
You know what a magnet does? It
demagnetize.
stays together. Let me tell you a thing about a magnet.
It's going to... Maybe. Great. Fix that then with a magnet. Fine. I'm on board if that happens. But yeah, I feel like I'm always like kind of pushing it back in every little while because it does kind of start to slide out.
over time, those
Yeah,
things,
it's just a little
those
like
connections
loose.
get loose.
Yeah.
I'm going to play with fire and choose a 2 here. I think just a little couple tweaks could go a long way. Yeah.
All right. 3 or 2. Okay.
Those are our
Wow.
questions. Thanks to everybody who sent them in.
Wow.
Great as always.
Great as always. Yes. All right. Should we shout out some of our wonderful Patreon subscribers?
Let's do that.
First up is our boss, Aaron Hash, the final boss.
There we go.
Right there.
Aaron Hash just got the great monthly surprise box in the mail.
He knew what it was this time.
We told him.
I told him like early.
Still cool. Though.
Still cool.
Yes.
All right, here comes the superstars. Here we go. Maru Mayhem.
Eigenverse.
Kiss My Flapjack.
Mike Chin.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up. Underscore.
VGM Life.
Link the Hero of Wins.
Angela Bycroft and her pig Molly.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Kyle LaBeouf.
Roberta Nieves.
Frederick Ulf Conradson.
Andrew Uhas.
Chili.
Bruce Dash.
Simon.
Krashuri.
Master Discord.
Ash.
Ajay Kundlas.
And 40 Gig.
Woohoo! And here come the One Up Club, Aaron Burgundy,
Alejandro.
Astrodev,
Awesome 46.
Bad Moon Horizon,
Bates.
Benji B,
Big End Gamer with a Y.
Bookem Dano,
Bookishly Fab.
Brandon Kevpill,
Brent Dennison.
Brooke Obscura,
Brovac Novak.
Cameron,
Shadir.
Chili Squirrel,
Chris Cube.
Crispy Saurus,
Christopher Lay.
Christopher Thompson,
Captain Alex.
Christabel,
C. Roper 17.
Dachshund,
Doinko.
Elite Peach,
Espars 50.
Fart Priest 69,
Fairbound.
Fernie and Just Forever,
Fox Deploy.
Garth the Wolf.
Gartooth.
Guilty Phoenix 42.
In Space Khalil.
Iris Marin.
J. Rando.
Jack Hoving.
Jeffrey Hernandez.
Joe Encarnacion.
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Collette.
Jordan Hemmerly.
Joshua Clements.
Juji Fruit.
Justin Lemminger.
Kawa2796.
Keith Kwan.
Kevin Delane.
Kilo Kibo.
Christorati Elf.
Christopia Party with me.
Kyle Gamerberry Rookie.
Kyle Kretzer.
Lazy Cat for Coffee.
Lit. Lex.
Link9898.
Now Lit.
Luigi53.
Lynn.
Matcha Potato.
Mad Dog 5981. Wow.
Magnificent Easy G and Callie Murray.
Marky Man 64.
Mario Man 392.
Mecha Dragon 101.
Megan.
Michael Cravens.
Mikey.
Mr. Ryan 07.
Motomania.
Mr. Andy Pong.
Mr. Beans Undead.
MSN Poke Gamer.
Mitran.
Nasir.
Nathan Burkhart.
Naif E.
Ninja 11.
Pangy.
Paul.
Paul Gale Network.
Prime Factor.
Prince Charmless.
Reverb.
Rain Tech.
Record Rumble.
Ryuji Utsuho Okuu.
Ryoth 1.
Rob.
Romsky 113.
Rox.
Ryanetta.
Sakura Sky.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinryu.
Schmiggles.
Slowbro.
Snaggle.
Spacey Poo.
Spicy Munchkin.
Steel Stroni.
Tales of Link.
Tay 120 and 64.
Teal Fox 64.
The Kagers.
The Shark Among Men.
Thomas Alvarez.
Three Rivers.
Timmy V.
Torcheeks.
Totally Joette.
Travis Torline.
Trick Jowie.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tusku.
Tyler Geis.
Video Game Stupid.
Vince Victor.
Viridian.
Virtual Bot.
Weeb Kingdom.
WG Grizzy.
YU.
Wicked Davy.
Will Johnson.
Zelgrov.
Zapatty.
And Zroid.
Whoa. Wow.
I like when you are faced with a new person and you just freeze when it comes. Like it could just be like Mike. You're like, well.
But I finally got Joe Encarnacion's name right.
Time to process new information.
Read very well.
What? You can't read? Oh, very well. Okay. Well, that's better.
Reading out loud is kind of hard.
Reading aloud. You can practice this.
That's why I feel like you are good at reading the questions, because you're a good out loud reader. Not a lot of people, I mean,
maybe that's why I do them.
When you read in your head, it's different than when you read out loud, right?
Okay.
Don't you think?
Well, maybe you should read your next book out loud.
I don't want to
It's
do
a
that.
little to do for you.
That's annoying. Okay. Please. Support
Clearly, it's time to wrap things up.
Yeah, I was just going to beg for money. Support this podcast and everything we do on this channel by going to patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
If you're watching on video, you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. And if you are listening on audio, you can also subscribe, give this podcast a 5-star rating, and leave a written review if you please.
Please! And we're on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and the brands. All right.
There we go.
Time to wrap it up. I'm going to practice reading in a mirror. Bye.
Bye.